Well, hello, everyone. I'm back. And welcome to a snowy edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. My thanks to Lisa Blackburn for filling in for me for a couple of weeks to allow me some vacation time. It was very nice to be able to get away from the studio for a few days. I would say that I disconnected and unplugged, but in today's world, folks, that's just about impossible with all of the stuff that's going on here on HRM and right around the world. I did my very best, but and you know, you get those screen time reports on your phone. My screen time was down significantly, but it's almost impossible to completely disconnect. But I tried very hard. My thanks also to Vanessa Vandenez, who's of course on the other side of the glass, for all the work that she's done. Forever, but for the last 2 weeks particularly. I know it was a lot of work to do, but I appreciate all the work that she does every day. Now it's Monday, and so I want to get right to our Councillors on the Hot Seat segment, and of course there's lots going on in the municipality, so we'll get to that. I do have some thoughts, however, on some of the communications that came from Nova Scotia Power over the weekend. And I'm going to leave those for the open hour, which, of course, happens at 11 o'clock, happens here on Mondays at 11 o'clock every week. And I'm going to save my thoughts for that, but I got to tell you that it raised a bunch of concerns for me about our power generation and if we're going to run out of electricity here in Nova Scotia soon. Anyway, we're going to talk about that after 11 o'clock. Let's get right to it, shall we? And let's welcome onto the show today, of course, with the weather. Both councillors are working remotely or from home, I guess is the way to describe that. Please welcome to the show from District 8. That's Halifax, Peninsula North, Virginia, Hinch. Councillor Hinch, how are you?
I'm good, Dan. How are you?
I am well. And on the in the other corner, on the other line from District 2, that's, oh my goodness, Lawrencetown, the Lakes Chezzetcook Eastern Shore, and that's David Hendsbee. David, how are you?
Very good, sir. I'm glad you're able to let your hair down for a couple of weeks.
It doesn't take long to let my hair down. In fact, it takes about 30 seconds. But anyway, we're able to disconnect. The lines are open, folks. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Again, that's 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. If you have a question for our two councillors, a golden opportunity to do that. One more time, 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. I guess we'll begin with what's happening out there right now, and we're dealing with yet another snowstorm here in HRM, and I'll start with you, Councillor Hinch. Your thoughts, at least to this point, on today's storm and the effort to remove the snow.
Well, you know, I'm home, Dave's home, we're all staying home, so we're trying to stay out of the way of the plows and everything, so we're trying to make it safe for our folks. So, again, they say if you can stay home, so that they can get the work done. So, you know, this is Mother Nature. This is what it is. We're used to this type of weather, so we just have to, you know, be patient.
Councillor Hinch had the opportunity to spend some time in the North End over the last 2 weeks, and particularly after last Monday's storm. Your thoughts on the removal process from that big dump of wet snow that we had a week ago?
You know, I felt it was pretty good. You know, I walked out. You know, I did a few walks about and things of that nature, and it wasn't that bad. So, you know, we're on the right track so far.
Councillor Hendsbee, obviously a different kettle of fish for you out there in the rural areas.
Yes, it was. It still is today in regards to, but this snow composition is a lot lighter, fluffier. It'll be easier to move away. So after this talking, I had to get my snowblower out and clear up my driveway. But yeah, the complaints are not too bad so far. People are prepared for it. Unlike last Monday, it was wet, heavy snow. This is a much lighter snow, so hopefully it won't be as complicated to remove. But the garbage collection in my particular area, in my District 2, Porters Lake, East Chezzetcook, Head Chezzetcook, and Conrad Sullivan's been suspended for today. That garbage collection will be postponed until Saturday.
Right.
We're asking folks who have garbage collection for tomorrow not to put it out tonight. Don't put it out until tomorrow morning, the day of collection. So we want to make sure we have as much room for snow removal services by the province or by the municipality, wherever necessary.
Don't want to get those bags blown up by the snowplow, right?
Exactly.
I'll start with you, Councillor Hinch. Is there a service standard when it comes to snow removal? And the reason I asked that question was I was off on Monday, which I'm not normally. I'm normally here, and didn't have any power, so I had a lot of time to look out the window. And what I noticed in my neighborhood was that the sidewalks got plowed very early on, even before the street. And then the street plows came by and filled the sidewalks back full of snow. Is there a service standard that the contractors are required to follow, or is it just get it done when you can?
Good question, Dan. I wondered that myself. In my where I'm living in my area on Creighton Street, the sidewalks were plowed pretty well, and then it did get snowed in a bit. But again, I believe that they're trying to do their best out there. I don't, whether if there's a service standard of 48 hours or 24 hours or whatever that may be, just be patient. That's all I can ask, is that they be patient.
Councillor Hendsbee, you've been around a while. Does that make sense to you to clear the sidewalks before the street?
Well, I don't have too many sidewalks in my district, but that does make an anomaly there. We're trying to do better coordination between the two services. But I know that the main arterial routes and transit routes and school bus routes usually have the high priority if we get cleared first between the first 12 to 24 hours after the storm. The biggest thing is we got to wait till the storm really finishes before we can do some real clearing. Right now they're just doing initial pushbacks and open up streets, but actually to push it all the way back, we just have to wait till after the storm finishes.
And that might be some time listening to our meteorologist this morning, Allister Aalders, saying that this storm is going to re-intensify through the day today. So we're not out of the woods yet. Yeah, and the other problem is all the wind and stuff, this light snow drifts very easily. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Outside of snow removal, of course, a big week for council. There's a meeting this Tuesday, and then we get back into the budget process. And I'll start with you, Councillor Hendsbee, with this first budget meeting coming. What's the first thing you're going to cut?
Well, my screening time, I got the budget books in front of me in regards to reviewing, the pages and stuff. There's plenty of pages to go through in the capital budget as well as the operational budget. So a lot of reading to go through, and that's the first thing. And then the biggest thing, tomorrow we're not sure if we're going to meet in person or virtually. It all depends how the storm goes. I think we're prepared to meet virtually tomorrow if necessary.
You have to have a list, though. You have to have some scratches on a piece of paper of where you're going to look to cut to get us down to where we should be. Well,
we need to have the department presentations in regards to what the priorities are for each of the departments, to see where their goals and aspirations are, and will council agree with those goals and targets. That's the first place we start to hear the business plans from each department before we start hocus-pocusly start cutting without knowing the backgrounds.
Councillor Hinch, what's on the top of your list?
For cutting, it's still debatable. To be honest with you, going through the book just like Councillor Hendsbee's doing as well. So, there's a lot of services in my area that I don't want to cut.
Right.
But unfortunately, we need to make some, hard choices.
So this is the first chance that I think those books came out on Friday, right? This is really your first opportunity to really crunch numbers. Am I correct?
Yes, it is.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255 is the number if you want to get in and get your question asked. A good opportunity to do so. Lines are wide open. I think we're going to take our first break here on Councillors on the Hot Seat, and we'll return on the other side of it. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand. We will be back in minutes. All right, welcome back. Councillors on the Hot Seat continues. The telephone number is 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. If you have a question for our pair of councillors, here's your chance. The lines are pretty much wide open, folks. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. On the line with us today, District 8 Councillor Virginia Hinch and District 2 Councillor David Hendsbee. One more time, 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's go to the phones, and we welcome David to the program. David, how are you?
Hi there. Yeah, not too bad. Inside, nice and warm for the time being anyway. So, yeah, I got a question for Councillor Hinch. I'm just curious what's happening with the Bloomfield Centre. Apparently the company that bought it had until 5 years from the date of sale to start developing the site. That passed in January 5th. So, I'm curious what's happening with the site and what the city's plans are to deal with that situation.
Thank you for the question, David. So it's coming back to council the first week in February. It will be in camera items because it's a property matter, but we will have the discussion then. I don't think there's much more I could possibly say at this time, but we will be having discussions about the property.
Oh, okay, great. And because I've sort of noticed, like, we received, notices of blasting and stuff like that, but the blasting's only maybe 1 month, and for a site of that size to spend only 1 month blasting doesn't really seem to indicate that they're actually undertaking, a significant development effort. It seems like they're moving a bit of dirt around with some excavators, but nothing serious. So, I'm just curious how that would sort of factor into it as well, too.
I don't believe that would factor into it at all.
Yeah. Did you see the report a couple of days ago on allnovascotia.com about the 3-tower proposal and the parks and planning for that site?
No, I haven't.
You may want to check that. There was an article. One of the towers be 36 stories, which will dwarf the Richmond Yard tower by about 4 floors.
So, so that would be an application for development. So that means, like, they haven't even put in their permits yet. So, I mean, kind of by definition, they haven't started any kind of development then. Because, what I'm curious about, the federal government, they have announced big intentions for housing. And, it seems like that chunk of land, if the city were to partner with the federal government and stuff, that we could access, to give a significant amount of funds and perhaps have them take the lead on the project, sort of like the Shannon Parklands, and actually get something done for sort of affordable housing, especially in this neighborhood where we've lost so many cheap apartments and stuff like that to sort of, large high-rise developments with really expensive rent.
Mm-hmm. Dave, as you know, I'm pretty sure this is the day that I'm speaking to, but I do have a meeting this week coming up with Shannon. Meeting room to discuss that actual thing.
All right, David, thanks very much. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We'll go back to the phones and welcome Paul to the program. Paul, how are you?
Good. How are you doing this morning?
I'm well. Your question, please.
Question is for Mr. Hendsbee. We talked about it about 2 weeks ago in regards to street lamps on Mines Road out in West Pepsquick, and I was just doing a follow-up to see what might be going on with that.
Yeah, I've put the request forward to staff, and they're out there doing investigations to see how many they need to put up. But, there's at least a dozen down there. So the staff are assessing that, so hopefully that will be rectified soon for you.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Paul. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Another question for you here, Councillor Hendsbee. This one comes via email from Rob. It says, ask Councillor Hendsbee if he knows if sea cans or shipping containers are allowed on property lots in HRM.
Depends what the use is. Yes, they are allowable. A lot of people use them for storage containers and sheds and stuff. But we're now looking at some amendments to our regional plan to allow them to be used for building construction, in regards to modified for residential purposes. So, but we're still waiting for our regional plan amendments to be passed by the province that's been submitted some time ago now. So once those amendments come through, CCAN can be converted into housing projects.
Is that the same plan that would allow properties to have Airbnbs on them in the rural areas?
With the short-term rentals, you're right, yes.
And do we have a date on that? Do we have any time frame, or is it just at the pleasure of the province?
At the pleasure of the province.
Fair enough.
Do you think they would talk about having speedier development, while their timelines are getting a little prolonged, I guess you could say?
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Hello, Gloria.
Hi, welcome back, Dan.
Thank you. Your question, please.
Thank you for taking the call. First of all, I want to give a shout-out to David. David always has the answers. I noticed that when I was on council with him. He not only knows what's going on in his own district, but he tries to know what's going on in all of the districts. Anyway, David, you said that you had to look at departments' goals and aspirations before you made cuts. What you really need to be looking at is what the residents want and what we can afford. When I was on council, I made the comment, and I still believe in it, that the only people that should have an increase in their budget during these tough times are the real service providers. The rest of them, no need for an increase, no need for new staff, no need for new furniture or moving or anything like that. I'm looking at newspaper clippings here, and when I was mayor of Dartmouth and we had a tough budget, the first thing we looked at was to cut 8 to 10 executive positions. I don't mean putting people out of their jobs, but look to the people who are near retirement and get them to retire and do not fill that position. So those are my comments. David, I don't know whether you have anything to say in response.
Well, Gee, we talked about this the other day. I think the important things we have to look at, make sure we have a necessary complement of police and fire. I think it's important to make sure that our public safety is a paramount service we need to maintain. I agree in regards to hiring freeze and look at our attrition rates, how many we have folks for retirement stuff. Perhaps that will help fill the void in regards to trying to meet the budget cutback targets by having a hiring freeze or early retirement packages. So those are some of the things we need to look at.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan.
Thanks, Gloria. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Councillors, I was reading in the Herald, I think it was today or yesterday, a story that I think Jen Taplin wrote it, about empty lots in HRM and the number of empty lots that are increasing as council again waits on the province to get that empty lot tax. Where are we at on that? We'll start with you, Councillor Hinch.
Good question. I'm still looking into this myself, especially when it comes to the Bloomfield site. So,
right.
So I'm quite interested in that as well. Not 100% sure where it's at this point in time, though.
Councillor Hendsbee?
We're still waiting for authority from the province to allow us to have that vacant lot tax capability. Just to let people know this is the serviceable boundary only. So if there's any water and sewer lots that are left empty for any prolonged period of time, there should be a surtax put on the property to make sure they either put into reasonable use or pay an extra tax on it.
3,000 empty lots would make for some good housing areas, wouldn't they?
Correct.
It would.
It's and I know we always do this when we start talking about the province, but they seem to be in a hurry to get stuff from you folks, but not in a big hurry to return the favor. No comment. Are you very look at the politics happening here on Monday? It's got to kind of tick you off, doesn't it?
I'll bite my tongue on that one.
Fair enough. 902-405-6000, 1-877. I'll say it. Get off your backsides, folks. This could be a big benefit. The premier has been talking about creating affordable housing for a year now. There's 3,000 empty lots in HRM that if we could motivate people to actually develop them, that's going to help, right?
Yes, it will.
Let's be called back in on February 23rd. So let's see what's on besides the budget.
See if we get more than 5 days out of this one. Anyway, also reading in the paper, and I know this isn't in any of your districts, but it'll certainly impact everybody here in HRM, that we're looking at a couple-year delay in the fast ferries from Bedford. So I'll start with you, Councillor Hinch. Your thoughts on that?
Well, to be honest, we're having delays with our Alderney ferry right now, so,
right.
Half an hour schedule delay and all that. So, I mean, we need to get this moving forward in order for us to move better in our city. So, it's just another delay.
Councillor Hendsbee?
I think some of the issues may be with via rail in regards to getting access over the railway tracks and stuff is one of the hold-up points, as well as here's another area we need to do infilling of the harbor in regards to building the landmass necessary for the ferry terminal plus other developments there. So there's a few things we need to work out, but timing-wise, I think the crossing agreement with the via rail, CN Rail, is going to be the biggest hurdle to get over.
But I would imagine adding 2 years to the length of a project also adds 2 years to the price tag, right?
You would think, yes. But hopefully the the pandemic prices will come down eventually.
It's to what, 258 million was the last number I saw for that?
Yes, and also we're looking for electric ferries and stuff as the key feature for that facility as well.
Right. And again, it's at least the article suggesting that the province is looking to secure the land rights for that. So you're probably right about the rail cut, right?
Yep.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. That's the number if you want to join the conversation. Plenty of opportunity to do so. Lines are wide open. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We have a council meeting coming up on Tuesday as well. You've got, council on Tuesday, budget on Tuesday, budget on Wednesday, and budget on Friday. You all going to be busy.
Oh, yes. We're doing lots of reading, for sure.
No kidding. One of the items that's coming before council is Councillor Mancini's request for a review of bike lanes. Have you had an opportunity to go through that yet?
I haven't had a chance to review that report yet, but I'd like to know where the status of all the connectivity or the gaps that were left to be filled in, because I think the simplest thing to do is let's look at our system, let's see where the gaps are, and focus on the gaps, and not, let's do the bare minimum regards to connectivity. This AAA Cadillac designs, I think that should only be necessary where there's problematic areas. But let's get the corridor down, let's get the connections down, and then look at the problem areas.
Councillor Hinch?
I agree with David as well. We just need to do the cores. We don't need to do every street. We just need to do what is necessary to do. So I've looked over a bit of the report, but I haven't fully went into it as of yet.
I read a little bit of it this morning as well. It said that the network currently, the design of the AAA network is 59% done. There's still about $66 million more to come. The report says right in the executive summary that it didn't look at lower cost alternatives. I thought that was the whole reason for the report. And it did find $4.7 million in savings.
Okay.
So we'll look forward to the debate on that tomorrow night. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Councillors on the Hot Seat continues after the news. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. If you have a question, good time to call. We're back after the update. Welcome back to the Monday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. It is Councillors on the Hot Seats. Your opportunity to ask questions of our two councillors on the phone today. District 2 Councillor, that's David Hendsbee, and District 8 Councillor Virginia Hinch. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. That is the telephone number to get in and get on to the air. Again, 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Councillors, you no doubt saw the same emails that I saw this weekend from Nova Scotia Power with regards to the cold temperatures that we were experiencing and their ask of residents to conserve electricity. I guess we'll begin with the broad question on that one, and I'll start with you, Councillor Hendsbee. Your thoughts on that and the ask from Nova Scotia Power.
Well, I can appreciate the demand loads they're probably experiencing right now. This storm this Monday is quite different from last Monday.
Yes.
The wet, heavy snow last week caused a lot of damages and outages. So far this weekend or this Monday, there's very few power outages being reported at the present time because we don't have the heavy wet snow breaking branches and interfering with power lines. But we are having some transformer issues in some places. I know in the Head-Jador and Lake Charlotte area, there's been issues of browning out. The lights are dim and everything else, so we're worried about the power transmission. So there are some issues with the capacity of the lines, and everybody be having their heaters on, electric heat turned up even higher. There's be more and more demand. So we're asking people to be a little more conscious of their use of stuff. Back in the summertime, we're talking about water use and how to conserve water. Now we're looking at trying to conserve electricity to make sure we have enough in the grid to support everybody. And
that was my next question, David, is that, we seem when it comes to our utilities, water, and I know that Nova Scotia Power isn't a municipal responsibility, but I mean, minus 18 or minus 20, that happens in Nova Scotia and happens often. Bigger cause concern, or are we going to run out of transmission capacity?
Well, my biggest concern is for these extreme cold temperatures, those heat pumps that everybody's been asked to convert to
Right.
are not that effective in this cold weather. So hopefully people keep some of their alternative heating sources like wood stoves or propane fireplaces as an alternative heat source. But I'm concerned that we need to look at upgrading the power line corridors. We've been seeing some better vegetation management this past summer of them clearing and cutting trees away from underneath the power lines, but they need to do more of that. Plus, they need to upgrade the power lines from 1-phase to 3-phase power.
Councillor Hinch, your thoughts?
Dave pretty much said it in a nutshell, to be honest with you, There's not much more that I could possibly add to that. So, with conserving power, the one thing that I just like to put out there is, to make sure that we're using the proper heat source and that we're not overextending. So, but other than that, Dave said it in a nutshell.
902. Sorry, go ahead, David.
And on that point, if anybody's using alternative heat sources, please be very careful. If you're planning on using any propane heaters or barbecues to do cooking or whatever the case may be, please make sure that a well-ventilated area. We want to make sure we don't have any carbon monoxide poisoning issues.
Right. Don't fire them up in the garage or anywhere else that's not well ventilated, because you're right, that creates tragedy. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's go back to the phone lines and welcome Joe to the show. Joe, how are you?
I'm okay. How are you, Dan?
Good. Thank you. Your question.
I called last week and I asked a question. I believe John Young from District 14 and our deputy mayor were both on, and I couldn't get a clear-cut answer from either one of them. I've gone to 311. I put a complaint in about feeding wildlife, specifically the pigeons. I live in an apartment building in the west end of Halifax, and they're becoming a major problem, at least here. But when I ask the question, I guess I get a few giggles, and not from the councillors, but from people out there thinking it's not a really significant issue. It is for me, because I live here, and that's why I'm calling. So I can't seem to get a clear-cut answer. Is it or is it not illegal to feed wildlife? And I was told by a wildlife compliant officer that no, it isn't. And I was told by another one it is. So the last one that I spoke with said it's not illegal to feed the pigeons unless they're presenting a problem. And I said, well, I wouldn't be on the phone with you if it wasn't a problem.
Right.
Well, their feces is everywhere. It's on our balconies, on our walkways, on our windows, cars. I even got bombed myself one day when I went out. So pigeon feces is highly toxic. I've called public health, I think 3 or 4 times, no response. I call the mayor's office, and I'm thinking, why the heck can't I get a straightforward answer? And I heard David Hendsbee on there, and I thought, now there's a guy that's going to give me a direct answer. So here I am. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Joe. Go ahead, David.
You are correct. Feeding pigeons is under the nuisance bylaw and not allowable. It's part of the wildlife issues as well, about feeding deer and stuff. So he is correct. If you look under a nuisance bylaw, there's a section there pertaining to wildlife and includes waterfowl, and which includes pigeons, right in the definition there.
So, David, what should Joe do? He seems to be a little frustrated on getting some results here.
Well, the issue is regards to a lot of people have bird feeders and stuff. The question is are the pigeons going to the bird feeders for the wild birds, or are some people out there intentionally throwing seeds out by the statues, whatever the pigeons where accumulate is? Are they feeding pigeons directly by casting seeds out where they're at? So it's kind of difficult to enforce. Depends on what type of bird feeding it is. If you have a bird feeder sitting out on your deck, whatever, it's one thing, and the pigeons are going after it, or the other wild birds, or are you intentionally going to a park bench and casting out seeds and having the pigeons flock around you? Well, that would be a problem.
Joe, if I'm familiar with this story, this is your apartment building, correct?
Correct.
So would this be a jurisdictional thing, David? Would it be because it's privately owned?
No. I would have to check the bylaw in regards to if it's within municipal parks and stuff. It would not be appropriate. But on private property, I would have to check the bylaw.
Okay, Meg, can I add a PS to that?
Sure.
The compliance officer that called me the last time said to me that it's not illegal to feed the wildlife, to feed the pigeons. And I said, well, I was already told it was. He said, no. He said, unless it presents a problem. And I said to him, well, I would say when a pigeon, the bird is dropping its feces on your balcony and on your car, your walkways, on your head, I said it's very toxic. And I said, you are a compliance officer, aren't you? He said, yes, I am. And I said, well, why do I have to connect the dots on an issue that you're supposed to be an expert on? And I got very annoyed, and I just said, I don't see the purpose in us talking. You don't seem to understand. Even after I explained what was going on, he said, well, what kind of a problem is it presenting? And I thought, I was at a loss for words. I thought, so here I am. I appreciate that, David. I figured I'd get the straight dope from you, but it is presenting a health problem, and it's people within the building that are feeding them. I've seen it happen. The property management company sent out a letter a couple of years ago, but since then the entire tenancy of the building, probably 50 to 60%, has turned over. So it's not really being enforced. And if I can't go to 311, get a compliance officer to understand the problem, how can this be? How can I address it? And by the way, when I was on the phone last week, I had a gentleman call in afterward, and he kind of, I wouldn't say giggled, but he thought it was a little humorous that it would be a simple solution is just for me to go online. I don't have a computer. I don't have a tablet or a smartphone, or I don't have any AI, so to speak. So I rely on my phone and asking direct questions. So, yeah, I appreciate that, David. Thank you. What's the next step for me? How can I get this resolved?
Well, if you want to get a copy of the bylaw, if you want to go visit the local library, if you don't have any access to the internet and stuff like that, the library should be able to assist you with that. To get it, you print off a copy yourself to read it for yourself in regards to the rules and regulations. But and I would say call 311 and report the problem. Is it a private property or public property in regards to this feeding of the animals?
It's private, and I did call 311, and I got a return call from a compliance officer, and maybe it's him that I should instruct to go read the bylaws so he understands the parameters of his job.
Yeah.
All right, Joe. Right. Appreciate it. Keep us in the loop. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We're going to take a break. Councillors on the Hot Seat continues on the other side. All right, a few minutes left here with our time with the councillors. If you have a question, the telephone number is 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. It seems that we've started the pigeon discussion again. Let's welcome Shelley to the program. Shelley, how are you?
Yes, I have a sort of follow-up to the previous caller. It isn't exactly pigeons I'm concerned about. I live in an apartment where there's quite a few immigrants that live here, new Canadians, I guess we call them. And I don't think the landlord might be of the same nature himself, so they're not told what to do properly when it comes to trying to stop the spread of bugs and whatnot. We have a problem here with I don't quite know how to say this, but you know yourself when you clean up your table after a meal, you clean your dishes and you put them in compost or garbage or what have you. Well, what we've noticed that a lot of these people clean their plates. They clean them right out under deck. They take their plates and shuffle the food out on the deck. I guess they think it's good for the birds. But the problem with that, it's not the birds that are eating it. It's the rats and rodents that are coming around. And I think that's a big cause of having so many cockroaches and bugs around. And I wish there was some way that we could get it through the landlord's head that he has to speak to these people and tell them, no, you don't do that.
I would be on the phone right now, right after you hang up with me, telling them that.
Yeah. The thing is, we can't say anything because as soon as the tenant says something to another tenant, it's prejudice and it's a problem.
Well, if you say somebody's throwing food off their deck, Shelley, I mean, that doesn't matter who, no matter where they're pouring, right? That's going to create a problem.
Exactly. Well, I think that's a big problem throughout the city because a lot of these people are doing that. They're cleaning their plates right out under deck, and the food is just spreading insects and bugs. So I wish the landlord would somehow speak to them and tell them not to do that.
Thanks, Shelley. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's go to Eve. Eve, how are you?
I'm fine, Dan. How are you?
I'm well. Your question for the councillors, please.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
I live at Highfield Apartments in Dartmouth, and we had the same problem with pigeons. Someone was feeding them, and apparently that person was asked to leave.
Right.
And then management, because the pigeon problem became so bad, there were hordes of them coming here. You could not go out onto your balcony. It was plastered with feces.
Mm-hmm.
It was just unfit for human habitation.
So it was the property management that handled that, right?
Yes, they went around and they installed netting on every balcony.
Really?
They had to, because there's no way you could use your balcony otherwise. You were just in a steady process of cleaning it up.
Eve, appreciate
getting
it.
nowhere.
Thank you for the call. Have a good one.
All right, bye-bye.
Councillor Hendsbee, I guess the response here is that, you can contact the city, but it's probably best handled through the property management, right?
Well, I'll just read under bylaw A700 for animals. It's section 16, feeding of the birds. 16 says that no person shall feed birds, including waterfowl and pigeons, on lands abutting or adjacent to bodies of water. That's Schedule 1 of the bylaw, and also later on it says no person shall feed or permit the feeding of birds that creates a nuisance to an owner or occupant of any property. So, yes, if there's a problem there, they should be complained to the property management first of all, and then if they're not getting any satisfaction, then to the municipality. I'm
not a lawyer, but that bylaw sounds to me like that enforcement officers would have a right to do something if the property management doesn't. Am I correct?
It sounds like that to me.
Right. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's welcome Gordon to the show. Gordon, how are you?
I'm good, Dan. How are you today?
I am well. Your question, please.
I got a question for both councillors, I guess. Are you guys familiar with the Mumford Road bus terminal?
A little bit.
Well, there's 3 shelters there, and then there's a bigger shelter up at the top. And often I get the bus home because my girlfriend's an emergency nurse at the hospital. And instead of me coming and getting her at 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, she just has to drive home herself. So on my way home last night, it was really cold. And so I got off the bus and I thought, okay, I'm going to take a walk up to the circular shelter that's up at the top of the top end of the bus terminal to keep warm. And I get up there and the door was locked. So I'm wondering, what is the purpose of that area when the benches and the heaters are in there and the monitoring machine? But what struck me the most is that several people were outside, and there was a woman in a wheelchair and a senior woman, and the woman in the wheelchair was crying because her fingers were so cold. And I asked them, I said, ladies, what are you doing out here in this cold? They said, we had to go to Walmart to pick up some stuff because of the storm coming. And, they couldn't afford a taxi, so they got on the bus. So, I'm concerned that these people are part of our public and part of our people, that they're seniors and disabled people that are probably on disability salaries or pensions that are smaller than your councillor salary and your expense account. And so I'm kind of thinking, the next time that you guys are home in your warm house, could you think about the people that are out at the bus stop waiting and freezing, especially like last night, the way the temperatures were, that somebody should have that door unlocked. And if possible, if there's going to be problems there, it should be monitored. I thought that's what what we pay our taxes for, and what this community in Halifax and Dartmouth people are about, caring people that want to help each other and that do things for each other. But most of the times that I go home on that bus, that shelter is locked, and it shouldn't be, because I believe it's there to keep the people warm and out of the rain and out of the cold. And maybe you guys could probably do something about this.
Thanks for the call, Gordon.
I could probably look into it. I use the bus system as well, so I'm normally on the bus quite a bit, especially at Mumford Road area. I haven't been in the circular shelter that area for quite some time, because I normally take the number one that's up closer to the mall, so I'm over by that shelter. But I can look into it and see what's going on with it for sure. And yes, we do care about what's going on.
Councillor Hendsbee?
Yes, I think that is an issue. I was not aware of our bus shelters being locked up, unless we have been having vandalism problems. But with this cold weather, he's correct that we should be having those shelters made available and being used. So I think that Virginia and I will have our transit folks reassess that situation.
Doesn't make a lot of sense to heat a building and not let people use it, right?
Because I'm pretty sure there's a bathroom in there as well.
Right.
There's services in there to use.
We know, and on that file, Councillor Hinch, we know that there's been some concerns raised at a number of particularly the terminals, at the Bridge Terminal, at the Lacewood Terminal. Is that getting any better, or are we still having problems at those two sites?
Well, I can't say for sure at the Bridge Terminal. I haven't been over there in quite some time. I'm told that the security over there, maybe we can put security in this one as well.
Right.
So that we can leave the doors open.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. That's the number. We're going to continue with the open hour on the other side of the updates. We're almost out of time with our councillors today. We'll, of course, ask them both what's going on in their districts. Councillor Hitch, what's happening in the North End?
Well, starting on Wednesday, January 28th, is the opening of African Heritage Month.
Right.
Paul Original Hall at Halifax Central Library. From 7 till 9 p.m. They're having a ceremony there. You can either go in person or you can go or live stream on YouTube. And also the next day, African Heritage, the flag raising at Grand Parade will follow. And following the flag raising will be refreshments at City Hall, and the mayor will be doing the proclamation for that as well.
Councillor Hendsbee, what's happening up in District 2?
Oh, it's pretty quiet this time of year. As you already mentioned, we have a whole kind of budget meetings lined up this week for council, but it's pretty quiet in the neighborhoods. I know the Muscat Albert Harbor Lions will be having their Saturday breakfast the last Saturday of every month, starting at 7:30 in the morning until 10:30. So it's a great bargain for $10.
And don't forget, folks, the budget meetings are open to the public, and if you want to get involved in the process, a good opportunity to do so.
Yes.
Correct.
Councillor Hinch, Councillor Hendsbee, appreciate your time.
Have yourself a good day and stay warm and be safe.
We'll do our very best.
That's all you do, Dan. Thank you.
Thank you. We do this every Monday from 10 until 11 o'clock to give you an opportunity to ask questions of your councillors. Sometimes the only way that you can have a face-to-face conversation with. And we look forward to this each and every Monday. We are going to stop. We're going to get an update on the news here at 11 o'clock. And on the other side of it, time for the first open hour of the week. And I have some big concerns, folks. What's going on at Nova Scotia Power? I know we've been talking about that utility for months now, but on the weekend, I don't know if you saw this, but we saw some communication from Nova Scotia Power. They were asking people to conserve their electricity because of the cold snap that we're under. So I've only been, I'm still new to Nova Scotia. I've only been here for 14 years. But we get minus 15 to minus 20 a lot here. It happens in Nova Scotia. If this was a minus 30 like we saw in places in Western Canada and Central Canada and with a sustained wind chill, maybe I wouldn't be as concerned. But minus 18 with a minus, 22 or 24, whatever it was, wind chill, and we put out an ask to people to conserve power so that we don't have any issues with transmission. This should be a huge red flag for you all. Is our grid on the verge of collapse? Are we going to run out of electricity in Nova Scotia? Might be something you want to talk about when we open up the phone lines. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We're back after the update. All right, that's what happens when you let social media drive the vernacular about a football game. Nobody wants to watch the New England Patriots and the Seattle Seahawks? A question mark I put in front of that? What? Like, what? I will suggest that there will be many televisions in our part of the world on that game in 2 weeks. I know that there are some very diehard Seahawk fans that listen to this show that will be watching that game. But would it have been better if it was Denver and Los Angeles? I think it's going to be a great Super Bowl. We've got an upstart MVP candidate quarterback playing against, my opinion, probably the most dynamic offense that I've seen in Seattle since the Russell Wilson days. And to say that nobody wants to watch that game? Come on. Anyway, congratulations to the Patriots. Congratulations to the Seahawks. It's going to be a fantastic Super Bowl, I think. I think we're going to see a heck of a defense in New England. I think we're going to see that against a great offense in Seattle. And I think it's going to be a good game. Nobody's going to want to watch it. Come on. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Got a little off track there. Tends to happen here, especially if I've been away for a couple of weeks. This is the Open Hour, your chance to talk about whatever it is on your mind. No more rules apply. You can join the conversation and chat about whatever you like to, and I'd like to hear from you. I haven't heard from you all for a couple of weeks, so it'd be nice to catch up. But what caught my attention particularly, well, a couple of things caught my attention over the weekend. Locally, here, Saturday morning or midday Saturday, was it? I got an email from Nova Scotia Power as we watched the thermometers outside drop down to, what was it, minus 15. I went out for a walk on Saturday, and it was minus 15 degrees. I think it was minus 22 with the wind chill, I think, which is cold. Don't be wrong, it's cold, but it's not abnormally cold here. We get these kind of temperatures. It happens every winter. And I got an email from Nova Scotia Power that reads like this. It says, with extreme cold temperatures across Nova Scotia, more energy is needed by our customers for heating, and that's putting significant pressure on the power system. At this stage, we are asking customers to please conserve energy, especially during peak hours of the day. That, of course, 7 to 11 in the morning, that's breakfast. And then 5 until 9 at night, that is supper. The easiest way to conserve energy is to turn off high-consumption appliances and select the lowest comfortable thermostat setting. Our teams have been preparing all our power generating sites this week to make sure they're producing as much power as possible. We're also using our 2 new grid-scale battery sites and working with our neighboring utilities to support each other whenever we can. So I read into that we're going to get minus 15, minus 18, heck, even minus 20 degrees. And there was enough of a concern at Nova Scotia Power to ask people to conserve electricity. On the coldest day of the year, they were telling you to adjust your thermostat. Now, maybe it's just the way that my brain works, but this upset me. This saw a bunch of concerns get raised, at least in my brain. we get to minus 20, are we in danger like they saw in Newfoundland and Labrador, where there were rolling blackouts necessary? We've heard from NB Power across the border in New Brunswick that they're going to run out of electricity if they don't do something soon. Nova Scotia Power asking for those large increases in rates for us, and coming off of, 144,000 people without electricity after that storm on Monday. Then less than 7 days later, they tell us, okay, guys, got to conserve your power because we're worried about the grid. Is anybody else upset by this? Or is it just me? What is the state of the situation with the grid here in Nova Scotia? We did, in all fairness, did reach out to Nova Scotia Power today to ask for an interview, and we were declined. I was hoping that we'd have somebody join us to explain it. Maybe I'm missing the point here. And then I think it was later on Saturday night, we got this. With extreme cold temperatures easing, Nova Scotia Power's grid status index has moved back to normal, which means the request to our customers to conserve energy has now been lifted. Sorry, this one came in this morning. We'll appreciate our customers' efforts to conserve energy, as it was especially important during those peak hours when demand in the system is so high. While there was some localized issues and outages related to the cold on Sunday, our teams were able to avoid system-wide issues that could have required load shedding or proactive short rotating outages across the province. We are on the verge, folks, of rotating out outages here in Nova Scotia. The email goes on to say, we would like to thank our customers as well as our neighboring utilities across the Atlantic region for their support and for working together through this extremely cold weekend. Guys, and I've already said it, and I'm going to say it one more time. Minus 20 is cold, but we get minus 20 here. What happens to our grid if we get minus 30? We've seen those polar vortexes emanating out of the Arctic cap, working their way into Canada. It's stretching all the way to Texas. So it's not conceivable to suggest that could shift to the east and we could have minus 30. Do we lose our lights? I think if you're going to ask people to conserve their electricity because the grid is being stretched, I think it is necessary for you to explain why. Was there an abnormality in the system? Was there some transformer issues because of the storm last week? Was there transmission line issues? Did we not get everything fixed in time for this cold weather snap? Or is this our new reality? We already know that Nova Scotia Power, let's be honest, is not the most reliable utility on the planet. And now we have to deal with wind, we have to deal with heavy snow, we have to deal with extreme cold. That's just not winter here? Or am I just, maybe I'm making too much of this, but it's in my gut. It's a concern to me. I'm interested in your thoughts. That or whatever else you'd like to talk about. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Hello, Joe.
Hello, Dan. How are you?
I'm well. What's on your mind?
Apparently you're not.
Well,
you know what? I have one suggestion. Sure. I'm not I'm not an expert on thermodynamics or how Nova Scotia Power is run, but sure. Maybe, just maybe, if they took some of that nice, fat, guaranteed 9% annual return on their stocks, maybe if they gave some of that up, and if they had been giving it up previous to the present time and reinvesting it in building the grid up, we wouldn't be in this predicament now. What do you think?
Well, I don't know what's wrong with the grid. Like, is it at capacity? Is there something broken?
Well, it's outdated. It's like a car. What's wrong with my car? It's 20 years old. When did you last take it in for maintenance?
Right.
Well, I didn't. Well, that's the problem. So they've got a grid with a growing population, growing demand. No one's been monitoring the future of this essential service. They've been too busy sucking the profits out of the corporation. Thanks to Mr. Donald Cameron. I believe it was Donnie Cameron that turned it over to the private sector. And this is what we're paying the price for that now. So I think Tim Houston has very limited alternatives as to what he can do. I think he'd like to jerk it away from them and put it back under the government-funded domain. But it just doesn't seem to make any difference as long as humans are running the circus. We're going to have to put up with the elephants pooping all over the place. And that's pretty well what Nova Scotia Power is doing, sucking the life. I mean, a 9% return, Dan, at a time when interest rates are considerably lower than they have been historically.
No, absolutely hear you.
And the profits that they're taking are not being reinvested in the corporation. And we've had a burgeoning population, higher demand, shift in weather. That's not their fault, but they should have been preparing for this. You're not. No, you asked if you're the only one that's worried about this. No, I'm the other one. There's you and I, and that's it.
All right, Joe, I appreciate it.
All right, Dan. Thanks.
Have a good one. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. It's hard to argue with his points, isn't it? Even if that 9% guaranteed return on their investment is a rounding error when it comes to the cost of what it would take to improve the grid capacity, it still doesn't look good, does it? That when we need the utility, when we get how much was that snowstorm on Monday? Last Monday. It was, I think Allister told me that we were somewhere around 19 or 22 centimeters out at the airport. Now, there were different areas got more snow, and it was that wet, heavy stuff. I get it. But when we need it the most, 144,000 customers go without electricity. Then, when the temperature drops, then we get asked to back off our thermostats and not to wash our clothes or our dishes. I think that Joe was right. I think that Premier Houston may not have much to do with it, but at least try to do something. He made a lot of bluster about the utility when the proposed rate hikes came out and said that he wasn't going to stand for that, and then he got awful quiet. Here's an opportunity for him to show some leadership on this file and dig into this. Because what happens if we get to minus 30? Are we going to be huddling around tea lights in the living room? We're back after the break. Welcome back. This is the open hour, the first open hour of the week. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Your chance to bring up whatever it is you like to bring up. That's the beauty of the open hour. We're kind of having a discussion about Nova Scotia Power today and their ask on the weekend for us to cut back on our electricity usage as the temperatures got colder. It makes me ask a bunch of questions about the reliability, A, and B, the effectiveness of the grid. If we get below minus 20, if it goes to minus 25, minus 30, which is possible in our part of the world, then what happens? Again, 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Hello, Brian.
Good day, Dan. How are you today?
I am well, sir. What's on your mind?
Well, what's on your mind? Nova Scotia Power.
Right.
If there, as you know, I live off grid, but there's if they could allow people to store their own energy, all those houses with solar panels on them, if they're worried about the lack of power, just allow people to store their own energy who have these solar panels on the roof. And that would relieve the grid. But in the building code, electrical code, they make it near impossible for an average person just to grab a few batteries and go on and off the grid.
So, Brian, you're an expert at this. Obviously, if you live off grid and you've got panels in your yard, in your house. So, as it stands now, the building code doesn't allow me to store electricity particularly in the urban area?
They allow 15 kilowatts of power stored, but they made it so impossible. You have to have a fireproof room with fireproof doors. The batteries have to be 6 feet away from each other. It's ridiculous.
Right.
People have oil furnaces in their basement, lighting oil on fire, but they won't let you store a highly advanced battery.
Yeah, and these things are getting, the technology is improving every year, are they not?
Unbelievable. Like, I bought my batteries 3 years ago. I'm about to do another stack because the technology got even better.
Right.
So, but yeah, and that's why I went off. I didn't want to do Nova Scotia Power because I'm 2 clicks or so down the road.
Right.
If I have a line gone, I'm the last person they're coming to.
And you're going to have your own power anyway, right? Because, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
So you might as well just do it all at once.
The solution's out there, but they don't want that, because once people figure this out, it's going to steamroll them over.
I'm seeing a lot of people in my neighborhood with panels on their roofs. I think people are starting to catch on.
Yeah, but and that's the thing. Like, all these panels, all that energy is going to the grid, and they're saying they're short.
Right.
Like, they didn't have these panels 10 years ago the way they do now. Like, where's this power going?
Well, that's just it. So, I'm not sure, and that's why I wanted them to come on to kind of explain it. I'm not sure if it was is a generation issue or if it's a transmission issue, but, the silence doesn't help the situation.
No, and I used to be in Rocky Harbor, Newfoundland, and we had 120-kilometer winds, and we never lost power for 3 years.
Right. And I'm from Northern Ontario, where we would have weeks of minus 30 and never run out of electricity.
Yes. Yeah, and I grew up in Goose Bay, Labrador, and minus 50.
Right.
Never lost power. Because you die. People could get injured if you lose power at minus 50.
Right. You'll freeze to death. Your pipes will blow up in your house and everything. Yeah.
So, my suggestion is everybody has a solar panel on the roof. Call Nova Scotia Power. Demand I want to be allowed to use at least one battery or two. And it's super simple. You just hook it up to your solar system. Done. On and off button.
You don't even need an inverter, right? It goes directly to DC, correct?
I'm not sure how the solar panels on the roof is. I'm not sure if they have inverters in the houses. That I'm not 100% sure, but I know the off-grid stuff. But I'm not sure about the connecting to the utilities.
All right, Brian, appreciate it.
Yeah, okay. No worries.
Have a good one. Cheers. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. I always say it, and it almost sounds that I'm repeating myself, but I learn stuff, and I hope you do too, on these open hours about things like Brian was talking about this. I live in Clayton Park, and I went when the snowstorm on Monday, and then on Saturday, and the really cold, and wandered around the neighborhood to see what people were doing, and I see a lot of people in my neighborhood with those panels on their houses, and I was under the assumption that they were generating their own electricity and then storing it, but I guess that maybe they are able to get under that 15 kilowatts or whatever it is that Brian was talking about, but it wouldn't make a lot of sense to put that big investment in if your lights are still going to go out when the power grid goes down, right? You're still going to have a generator. And when did it become almost required piece of equipment in Nova Scotia to have a generator, because you just cannot trust the electricity grid? My power went out on Monday last week for 6 hours, and that was short by estimations from many people that I read and heard from after that storm. But I'll tell you what, when you don't have lights and power, holy smokes. You talk about an essential service. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We got a couple of callers on the line. We'll get to you right after the update. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Olstrand. We're back in minutes. All right, welcome back. Open hour continues. Lines are open. The telephone number is 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. We're talking Nova Scotia Power today and their ask of us over the weekend as the temperatures plummeted to minus 18 to conserve our electricity, as there was some problems perhaps with the grid and transmission, and they didn't want to see any kind of rolling blackout or brownout or whatever you want to call it here. Again, for transparency's sake, we did reach out. Vanessa reached out this morning to Nova Scotia Power to have them come on to explain. Maybe there was something that was abnormal, something that had happened that resulted in this, but we had our invitation declined. So at this point, we don't know. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's welcome Greg to the show. Greg, how are you?
Good. How are you doing, Dan?
I am well. What's on your mind today, sir?
Good. Well, I was just thinking, when you're talking about the usage of the power, I would have to think that that heat pump program that went right across the province for a few years, I would have to think that all the heat pumps that have been put in right across the province must contribute to the usage.
I don't think it helps, to be honest.
No, but that's what I'm saying. I mean, It would be a bit of a I know just in my little area community how many heat pumps I see on the homes.
But and Greg, again, I'm obviously not an engineer, but I wonder how many electric heaters got pulled off of the walls when those heat pumps got put in. So I wonder if it's a wash.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it would help. Yeah, you're true. Right. I did use. I actually had the heat pumps put in myself.
Right.
And of course, we have oil heat. It's a regular heat.
As your backup.
You're right. So you're right. There was the odd time I have a heater, a little one that would be just close. It wouldn't be a big one, but and that would probably almost drain the electricity to at least one heat pump.
Sure.
And I have 3 heads in my place, so but they say they're quite efficient. But you're right. I never even looked at it from that perspective. I mean, a lot of people could have had those electric heaters. That would be a lot harder on electricity.
Greg, since you're on the line and I don't have a heat pump, how do they work when it gets cold? Do you have to go straight to your oil, or do they do a little bit? How does that? I mean, I hear they're not efficient once you get below like minus 15.
Yeah, I think it depends on the BTU. So we have a fairly large size one put in. So this is my first time, first winter with them, and I've been using it not for the main source of heat. At nighttime, what I do is I turn down my oil heat really low, say it's down around 65.
Right.
Now I have my 3 heads running about 66.
Okay.
So they'll kind of keep the house at a certain temperature. If it gets down too low, then the oil furnace will kick in. So it's kind of a combination of spring and fall.
Right.
You can really heat your house with the heat pumps because it's not that cold. But when it gets really cold, and ours is an older home, then I have to rely more on the oil heat.
Appreciate it, Greg.
Okay, then. Thanks for having us, and good to have you back, buddy.
Thank you. Cheers. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. He's right. I do see a lot of heat pumps in, particularly when I walk through newer build neighborhoods. There are almost exclusively heated with heat pumps. But, and I've got a number of emails, and I appreciate the emails, folks, and I try to get as many as I can on the air and try to read. Well, I read them all, but I try to get as many on the air as I can. And people are asking that same question about the heat pumps. But I get it if you were running exclusively oil or natural gas or propane or whatever, and you converted to that, then there would be a larger pull on the grid. But I'm going to suggest that a good portion of the people that switch to heat pumps may have already been using electric heat with those electric heaters on the walls in front of their windows. And I wonder if in fact that's probably a savings. Maybe somebody that's had a couple of years experience that went from electric heat to a heat pump can give me a call and tell me. I know it's hard to read your power bills these days, right? But I'm sure you have an idea of what your kilowatt hours are. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Hello, Fred.
Yeah, listen, as far as I'm concerned, it's a maintenance on the power lines, what's going on. I live in Hants County. I'm a senior.
Okay.
And for years, when I was way younger, of course, they used to trim underneath the lines. But for years now, I don't care which direction I drive in Hants County, I can see the bushes tangled in the wires, and there's like them small, we'll call them like 3 and 4 inch little trees. going up through, and then when the snow hits them, they tangle across the wires and short power out and blow the transformer or kick something out, right?
Right.
And the power does travel through them branches if they're close enough, right?
Sure.
It can shoot through the branches and short the wires.
Yep.
So, as far as I'm concerned, they can come on there and say, well, they're spending all this money and they're letting on us the weather. Weather has something to do with it, but the weather pushes the bushes closer to the branches closer to the wires, and that's shorting the wires out, and we're losing our power. I can drive in any direction. I live in St. Croix, actually.
Yep.
And I can drive pretty in any direction from here, and I can see bushes tangling the wires. And that's the only way they do maintenance like they used to years ago. Instead of waiting until everything's done, it's like driving your car with tires and not replacing them. After a while, you're going to have a flat. So you're bringing on the problem yourself, right?
For sure. Thanks, Fred.
Yeah.
Have a good one. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's welcome Mike to the show. Mike, how are you?
Dan, how are you?
I'm good. What's on your mind?
Welcome back. I'll make this quick and simple, sir. I'm in Manitoba, and I'm trying to make this quick and simple. I'm in Manitoba, and last week I still go to the old fan. We had temperatures -30 with a wind chill factor 40. Now you guys saying that Nova Scotia Power asked this past week asked customers to turn down the thermostat bit and all that. Well, how low would I know you're not Nova Scotia Power. I'm trying to make this quick, but how low does Nova Scotia Power expect these people to turn the thermostat down?
Well, on the coldest day of the year, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm trying to hurry up here.
Yeah.
We get -30 with a wind chill 40. Now I still go to the old Fahrenheit. We had days here 45 below Fahrenheit with the wind chill. How low does Nova Scotia Power? That's what as you do. Now one more quick thing.
Sure.
Now these heat pumps. I'm in a mobile home here.
Yeah.
I'm in a mobile home. I've got to learn to speak slower. I'm in a mobile home now. But I don't. But if I had a heat pump, what's going to heat underneath the trailer? Now I got electric force hot air heat here. So I'm just asking a question. But hey, you guys do a good job. I've been listening to the show for a long, long time back in the old Rick Howe days. So welcome back and keep good work up in high, Vanessa. Thank you, Vanessa.
All right. Thanks, Mike. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. It's I understand that we're on the coast, and I understand that we don't get those extended periods that Mike was talking about in central Ontario and northern Ontario and in out west. I know that many of you that have spent some time up in Fort McMurray that are listening to us today will attest to how cold it gets there. Will attest to how cold it gets in places like Mike has told us about in Manitoba. I can tell you Northern Ontario that it gets. It was last week. It was at -28. I think was the low temperature and not a lot of issues with people having to reduce their heat. It makes me wonder how close to capacity we are on the grid. And if that's the case, then how do we increase capacity? Do we have to start installing new infrastructure? And then do you topple on top of all of that the Premier's plan to bring in all that generation offshore? How's that going to affect the grid? They're going to build their own grid? All kinds of questions. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We're back after the break. All right, welcome back. Just chatting with my colleagues in the newsroom and who have made their way in for the afternoon run here, and some are saying that the plowing may not be as well as one would anticipate, which is interesting. I know it's still snowing, and Allister Aalders, our meteorologist, by the way, will be joining us in the hour 3 to give us the latest on this storm and what's left of it. But and I know I'm looking out the window now; it's still snowing, and I can see a strip of black on Roby Street. But the plowing. Not perhaps catching up as much as one would suggest. So if you're kind of holding off until noon to get out today and go to work or go and get some stuff done that you need to get done, keep that in mind that the plowing is underway, but it's not Not 100% out there yet, so just wanted to pass that along. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. That is the number if you want to join the conversation. Again, 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's welcome John to the show. John, how are you?
Good morning, Dan. How are you?
I'm well, sir. What's on your mind?
Well, you were talking about solar panels earlier.
Yep.
And just a little over 2 years ago, I moved to Clam Harbor and I bought a home, and I have 20 solar panels on my roof.
On your roof, yep.
And, because you can put them in the backyard as well on, on a rack. But
yep.
Since then, I have not paid a power bill.
Right. So you sell your power back to the utility? Is that how that works?
I do. Every month, I get a usage email.
Right.
It shows you how much I sold them and how much I used, and then 60 days comes by, and then I get my bill. And the most I had was about a year ago. I had about a $400 credit.
Oh wow!
But I just got my bill a couple of weeks ago, and I still have 110.
Nice.
But except for the first month I moved in, where I had to pay the fees and all that other stuff to the power company.
Yep.
I have never ever yet had to pay my power bill. I always have a credit. And on your meter, you also the company that you deal with, you also get a portable or that's hooked up to your internet, and it shows you what your meter is doing, or your panels are doing. And also on the outside meter, there's an arrow. And in my case, if it's facing the water where I live on, that means I'm using Nova Scotia Power.
Okay.
But if it's the arrow's facing the road, it means I'm selling it back to the power company. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful product to have, and it's certainly a backup. But I don't have a battery. That's one thing I do not have.
Right. John, would it be safe to say that in the time that you've had your solar panels on and running and selling power back to have they paid for themselves yet?
Yes, they have, absolutely. I mean, the cost, I don't know if I can say the company, but it's out in Burnside.
Sure.
Anyway, you pay in this case, it's 20 panels, so it was $156 a month. And you pay for a number of years or whatever the financing was.
Right.
But it does. I mean, for 20 panels, think about it, $156 a month. And I know neighbors that have just no panels, and they're paying $800 or $900
right.
Every 2 months, or $600-700. So just imagine, I never have to worry about it. And when I see that arrow or on my app on my phone, it's brilliant. The only downfall, though, Dan, and I was thinking about the email in the company, is that days like this, where the snow builds up,
right.
I haven't done it this year yet, but I would go up and clean off the panels. But I'm going to email the company when they get around to it, asking them if there's just like your rear window defroster, if they can implement something that just to melt the panels. Because even when it's not sunny out, the panels are still working. You don't need a sunny day. It's just a wonderful product to have, and if I had a battery, it would even be better. But another thing you have to do is when the power goes out and you start your generator, you have to turn off the solar panels.
Right.
So there's a couple precautions that you have to make, but it just comes hand in foot, right? You just remember it after a while. But it's a great product. Now, whether somebody only needs 6 or 8 or 10, but I have 20, and it's just great. Like when I get my bill, it's just wonderful. I often email to my friends and say, this is it. You gotta love it.
Thanks for sharing, John. I appreciate it.
Have a good week, Dan.
You too. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Hello, Aaron.
Hey, Dan. How are you this morning?
I'm well. What's on your mind?
I've got a theory. I could be wrong on what's going down with Nova Scotia Power, but I believe our grid is tied into the states, and that's just so we can sell electricity to them and whatnot. And, for the past few days, there's been a polar vortex and a huge storm going on from Texas all the way up the eastern seaboard to the Midwest, Ontario, Quebec. Those people would also be snowed in,
right?
So they'd be staying home. They don't generally have weather that would require them to use heat, which they would be using right now because they're in a deep freeze.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that the extra weight on the grid would be giving Nova Scotia Power issues as well. I'm not sure, but that seems like it would make sense if that's the case.
I would think that by extension our grid's connected to the U.S. because it would go through New Brunswick, right? But we don't have any borders with the U.S., so obviously it would be by extension. But I know that Newfoundland and Labrador was also experiencing rolling blackouts on the weekend, and we're asking for some help in getting power from there. And I know New Brunswick's had some issues with generation as well. So you very well may be right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. I would assume, though, that the Nova Scotia Power would have the ability to stay within its own borders, right? You understand what I'm saying? I get it that it's connected to New Brunswick, and I know that if New Brunswick has a surplus, they can forward it to us, and vice versa. But you would think that in a situation like Aaron described, where we're all kind of in the same boat, that one would be able to distribute the electricity to one's own province first before it connects in through. But and again, I'm not an electrical engineer. I don't know how I know that the grid's the grid, and it's interconnected with everything. So Aaron may very well be right or partially correct that the excessive load on the grid from around the northern parts of the United, well, not even the northern parts, most of the United States and most of Canada very well may be playing into this as well. Hello, AJ. You get the last word today.
Oh, the last word. Thank you, Dan.
You're welcome. It's on your mind.
Well, the last word would be, I wanted to point out that 30% of the energy usage in a home is relative to heating hot water.
Right.
And in heating hot water, I mean, you can do that with solar. I don't want to say solar panels. Hot water solar panels.
Right. Understood.
That actually heats your boiler. There's a Thermomax, was a company here in Dartmouth. I don't know if it's around or not, but that 30%, okay, it's something to think about. And you can also say, okay, well, you don't need all of these electrical regulations.
Okay. Why?
Simple. It has nothing to do with electricity.
All right, you're talking about the hot water pump. Got it.
Exactly.
So if we all put those panels on our roofs, we could save the grid by not having to use an electrical boiler for our hot water tank.
That is correct. Okay.
Yep.
You will not get it all the time, but it will definitely. And I've installed them, and it's amazing what they do.
Do you ever run out of hot water?
Pardon?
Do you ever run out of hot water?
No, because it's backed up.
Nice. AJ, appreciate it, sir.
Have a good one, Dan.
You too. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Remember those numbers, folks, because we're going to do this again tomorrow. We'll do the second open hour of the week, our Tuesday edition. That will go at 11 o'clock, and I look forward to hearing from all of you. Very quickly, a couple of emails to get in here before we have to take a break for the news at noon. This one comes to us, and it reads, cold climate heat pump still works between minus 15 and minus 25. One needs a cold climate heat pump certification, though. And that also comes from, this one comes from Gordon, I should read, and it says, I heat my home with propane. I just got a new heat pump in the beginning of the summer, and I have the heat pump in my living room. When I'm home now, I heat most of my house at a lower temperature with my propane. I have a heat pump in my living room where my French doors are kept closed, and it keeps my living room toasty warm. My propane use has gone way down. I believe I'm having a substantial savings because I'm not trying to heat my whole house with propane. When I sleep in my bedroom at night, I have a heater in there to keep the room warm. I have it on the timer on my propane heat set to come on a half hour before I get up. It seems to be working pretty well. I think if people get heat pumps and use them primarily to heat part of their house, where they do most of their living, they can save themselves a lot of money. I appreciate all the emails and all the calls today, everybody. I look forward to this hour every day, and I'm looking forward to tomorrow's open hour at 11 o'clock. Time to stop. time to get an update on the news at noon. On the other side of it, hour number 3 of the show, it's a busy one. We're going to continue our discussion on Nova Scotia Power with a conversation with independent MLA Becky Druhan. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand. Back in minutes. All right, welcome back. Hour number 3 as we roll along here on a Monday, looking outside the window, and the snow has not yet let up, and the I almost said temperature gauge. The thermometer outside the window still showing us sitting somewhere around minus 15 degrees, so it's not getting any warmer and it's not getting any less snowy. So again, if you perhaps took the morning off and decided to make a run for it at noon, to go to work, to go to whatever it is you need to go to. Extreme caution, folks. As I said during the last hour there, a couple of the people that have showed up here for the afternoon run in the newsroom saying that the roads, some are good, well, not good, but some have been plowed, and others haven't seen a lot of a plow blade. So be extra careful when you're out there and get to where you're going safely. On Friday, a letter sent from our next guest to the Premier of Nova Scotia in his capacity as the Energy Minister in response to, I don't even know what to call last Monday, the incident, is that the right way to call that? The incident last Monday where we saw about 140,000 some odd Nova Scotia Power customers without electricity after that heavy wet snowfall. And the letter reads like this: residents and businesses across Nova Scotia's South Shore experienced some of the longest and most disruptive power outages in the province this past week, with many households left without electricity for several days. These outages meant cold homes, spoiled food, closed businesses, missed school and work, and significant stress for people trying to live through them. For some families, the power was out for over 4 days. This authored by our next guest, independent MLA for the riding of Lunenburg West. That's Becky Druhan. Becky, how are you?
I'm great, Dan. How are you?
Got your lights on today?
We do have lights on today, although what they're illuminating is a whole lot of snow at this moment.
Can you make the snow stop? Do you have the power to do that?
I really wish I did. Unfortunately, I do not.
Fair enough. Now, this obviously was an event last Monday, not this Monday, last Monday, that was felt across the entire length of the province, including in Cape Breton. But your area, in the Lunenburg area down towards Bridgewater, were hit pretty hard by this outage.
Yes, our area, and not just Lunenburg West, but Lunenburg, Queens, I think even into the Valley area was hit very, very hard, I think, with the majority of the outages, and certainly many, if not most, of the extended outages that occurred.
You write in your letter to the Energy Minister that reliable power isn't a luxury. Communities deserve transparency, accountability, and leadership focused on solutions, not just explanations. I think that resonates with me, and I'm sure with many who were without power for several hours and days on Monday.
Yeah, I mean, power is essential, and in our modern world, it's even more essential than it was in the past. And so outages can be very scary. They're frustrating. They cost a lot. They really hit home for people. They have health implications and educational and work implications. So we really do need leadership that allows us to be able to trust that we will have reliable power supply.
Becky, you no doubt took calls on this after the big power outage last week, and then on the weekend we saw Nova Scotia Power asking us to conserve electricity on the coldest day of the year because they were worried about the grid. What are your constituents telling you about this utility?
Yeah, so we've certainly had many people reach out, and they're really mixed feelings, mixed emotions. Everyone's frightened and frustrated. But there are real differences in opinion in sort of how to handle it. What I can say is we have to reinforce the complexity of this. The structure of this is that our Nova Scotia government sets the rules, the Energy Board applies and enforces them, and Nova Scotia Power has to operate within that framework. And so, we have a complex situation where there is mixed responsibility. And many people are angry at Nova Scotia Power and frustrated by them, and that is completely valid. There's no suggestion that Nova Scotia Power bears no responsibility. They certainly do. But the reality is demonizing them might be politically convenient, but it's not going to get us to solutions because it obscures that complex responsibility that exists there. So we really need a fix that reflects the balance between affordability, reliability, climate goals, and investment. And that's why we have to lean on leadership to make informed, deliberate, transparent decisions that will get us the reliable power, the transparency, and the accountability that Nova Scotians deserve.
It's really difficult not to demonize them. And the reason why I say that, Becky, is there's, as a ratepayer, and I would imagine even as an MLA, it just feels like there's very little we can do to affect change on this company.
And I think that's what's so understandable about this it really hits home. And we're all looking for solutions, and we need and deserve solutions. And it becomes really easy if someone offers you an enemy, if someone suggests, there's this one organization we can point to blame, that's a really appealing thought. But that obscures the reality of this. Nova Scotia needs to be held to account. They need to take responsibility where it lies, but the way that happens is by government setting the rules and our independent regulator applying them and enforcing them. And so it's complex, which means leadership needs to accept all of that, rise to the occasion, and work within that system to create a structure which will allow the enforcement and the accountability that we require from Nova Scotia Power.
The Premier made a lot of bluster when the rate increase proposals came out and suggested that he wasn't going to stand for that. Then has growing increasingly silent on this issue. Particularly as the Energy Minister, at least I think he needs to be more in front of this, right?
I completely agree. So, the complexity of this issue really requires that we have input from community, from individuals, from experts, from the regulator. We need everybody at the table to support a solution that's going to work in this. And the role of the Premier as Minister of Energy is to be that leader. And I think this is a real opportunity. In every challenge, there's an opportunity. And the opportunity here is to build trust and goodwill as we build a system that works. And that means not invoking enemies and heroes or opposition-style blame. That means getting there next, shoulder to shoulder with all of the many people who want to support this work, rolling up your sleeves and coming to collaborative solutions. So, I'm hopeful that the Premier will do that. We've seen our 30 days notice has been provided for legislature going in. I believe there was some suggestion a while back that there may be tabling of legislation to address this. This is the opportunity now for the Premier as Minister of Energy to share that work with the public and seek input to ensure that that input is had before the legislation is even tabled. And, I'm hopeful that happens to give us all an opportunity, to support the work that we want the government to succeed in.
Becky, some of your constituents and those in neighboring areas were without electricity for upwards of 4 days, and in your letter said, lost their fridges and lost their freezers and those kind of things. Should there be some sort of compensation for the folks that are affected by this?
Yeah, I think that's one element for sure that needs to be considered and put on the table. That is something that we see other jurisdictions have in place. And we have seen one-off instances of that in prior events where folks were compensated for those losses. So I think that's one element of a solution that could help support ratepayers.
Becky, appreciate your time.
I really appreciate the opportunity to chat about this. Thank you for the invitation.
That is the independent MLA for Lunenburg West, and that is Becky Druhan. When we come back, what's going on with the weather? Meteorologists like to smile when it's sunny. Is he smiling today when it's snowing? We're going to find out when our meteorologist, Allister Aalders, joins us right after the break. All right, our next guest is probably been spending more time poring over charts and maps and data and weather information than most, and that is our meteorologist, Allister Aalders. And before the break, I said that Allister, meteorologists tend to smile when it's sunny. I don't know if they smile when it's snowing. Are you smiling right now? Hello, Allister.
Hello?
There you are. I can hear you now.
I said, is it April yet? That would make me smile right now.
All right.
I mean, it's another snow day. I mean, we've been pretty fortunate so far. So, I mean, I guess, we just have to accept it. It is winter after all. But I mean, this is it's a sprawling storm system. I mean, the same storm that's, impacted, it's now a historic snowfall for Toronto and parts of the GTA. They had their snowiest month on record, and obviously millions stateside impacted with snow and freezing rain.
I saw the pictures from Toronto. In fact, I've been getting emails from colleagues in that city saying, "See, we get snow here." So they got like 50 centimeters, right?
40 to 60 centimeters in around Toronto and Mississauga, which, I mean, they do not see very often at all. Very, somewhat of an uncommon and unusual setup for them, where they had the storm system itself, but with winds blowing in off of Lake Ontario, they got into a snow squall. And as you know, Dan, those squalls usually kind of set up in those traditional snow belt areas off of Lake Huron and Georgian Bay. They don't usually drive in off of Lake Ontario
Need a south wind for
into
that, right?
Toronto.
Yeah.
So it's very uncommon for them, and it just parked there, 10 centimeters an hour in some cases.
Wow.
So the thing about this, too, that was fascinating is it was 40 to 60 centimeters, much of which fell in only a span of a few hours for them. So, I mean, truly incredible just looking at the images today. A much different picture than what we're seeing, although, hearing some reports in parts of the southwest of the province this afternoon of amounts upwards in excess of 30 centimeters in those areas, and a bit of a break now.
I can hear the Todd Veinotte show listeners going, "Oh, looks good on him." Enough talk about Toronto. Okay, enough talk about Toronto. What have we got so far, Allister, and what can we expect in the next 12 hours or so?
So we had that first kind of pulse of moisture move through overnight, and there was some heavy snowfall rates. Obviously, as I just mentioned, in the southwest of the province, had some reports of a general 15 to 30 centimeters. And then the valley back into Halifax, Hants, and southern Colchester amounts were near 15 centimeters earlier this morning. Now, one thing that's happened since then is we've had some drier air kind of infiltrating in the lower levels of the atmosphere. So what that's trying to do is obviously evaporate that snowfall that's trying to reach the ground or trying to develop and reach the ground. So the snow is, for the most part, fairly light out there right now for Halifax, the eastern shore, and the western half of the province. In some cases, you might even be getting into a bit of a break or seeing a few peaks of, I won't say sunshine, but it's almost like the sun wants to peek through. As that low that's coming in behind this first pulse continues to develop and intensify, we will see some steadier periods of snow redeveloping as we go later today and certainly throughout the night tonight. So it's more so periods of snow for the rest of this event here in the Halifax area throughout the afternoon and the night tonight, and then into early Tuesday morning, and certainly during the day on Tuesday, the system starts to pull away, so any leftover periods of snow taper off to some flurries. So some further snow on the way. We've had 15, give or take, a few centimeters above or below that, and we're likely on tap for at least another I would say, 5 to 10, possibly upwards of 15 centimeters. But it looks like we will kind of finish in that 20 to 30 centimeter range, which is kind of the lower end of the initial forecast range, at least that I had, of 20 to 40. But, we'll see how everything comes together later today and tonight.
All right, Allister, the all-important question, what happens after? What are we expecting Tuesday and on through the middle of the week?
So the rest of the week is generally quiet. There will be, as I mentioned, a few lingering flurries to start the day tomorrow, and we could see a few flurries drifting in at times through the middle and later stages of the week, but there's no organized weather systems on the horizon through Friday and into the start of the weekend right now. Temperatures are going to remain cold, not as cold as they were over the weekend, but, -7 is the high today. I think we'll bump up to about -5 tomorrow, but then we're near, -7, -8 Wednesday and Thursday, and then perhaps a bit of moderation in the temperature for the weekend, which I know would be welcome because obviously the cold is very bitter, especially when you factor in the wind. And then I would say the next system I'm watching with interest would be a coastal low that looks to develop later this weekend into the start of next week. Still quite a bit of uncertainty with that. However, multiple models of the global models are showing it potentially approaching and impacting the region, possibly beginning on Sunday or possibly late Sunday to Monday. So that will be, I think, the next major system to watch.
What's with the Monday storms?
We're flipping, it was Wednesday in 2015. Now we're doing, Mondays. We, from time to time, we do get into these patterns where these systems just tend to roll through around the same time each week. And it seems like we're in a bit of a late Sunday and Monday trend at the moment.
All right, Allister, we've only got a couple of minutes left, but I got to ask you about this deep freeze that is gripping North America. I just saw a flash on CNN that 12 people have died in a bunch of states there as a result of the cold. What's driving this? Is this like the polar vortex of all polar vortexes?
Well, obviously it is, kind of a branch of this polar vortex that's been able to spill out across, much of North America. For much of January, at least in our neck of the woods, we were in a bit of a ridge in the jet stream that kept the cold bottled up farther north. But that jet stream, we've seen a deep trough develop, and the polar vortex has been able to weaken and send some of that cold south, obviously abnormally far south in terms of the southern states, which are, as you mentioned, getting into some very bitter cold. We're just into that pattern once again where we have this deep dip in the jet stream, and it's allowing that cold air to really funnel down, from the high Arctic right down across North America. And obviously, the coldest temperatures are to be found here in Canada, especially in the north and across parts of the prairies. But, we're keeping temperatures cooler than normal across much of Canada and the U.S. Our normal high for this time of year is about -1. And, as I mentioned, the daytime highs are in the mid to lower single digits for the next few days. So generally a colder than normal pattern, and then perhaps shifting a bit closer to where we should be for this time of year to welcome in February.
All right. If your forecast holds true and the next system coming through is Sunday into Monday, Allister, that means that your friend Shubenacadie Sam might be getting covered in snow.
Right. Okay. The month is going by so fast. I'm like, I can't even believe, February is next week. So, yes, that wouldn't that be quite the scene up in Shubenacadie on Monday?
So
he won't even want to come out.
Can you see your shadow if you're covered with snow?
I don't know. I guess it will all depend on, if that snow is tapered off by the time they try to bring them out. And, they've had issues in the past in the cold and the snow where, they have trouble getting them out. So I guess we'll have to wait and see on that. But, yes, obviously always a lot of interest in those fun kind of folklore weather predictions on the rest of the winter and how it will shape up. Because obviously we're only at the end of January. There's a lot of winter left to go.
You heard it here first. Thanks, Allister.
Thanks, Dan. See you Friday.
That is our meteorologist, Allister Aalders. When we come back, 50, that's 50 years before some families who came to Canada from the Ukraine will see their permanent residency applications processed. We're going to dig into that after the news. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand. We're back in minutes. Welcome back. As we roll along here on our Monday afternoon, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world, right? We are inundated with it daily from the local issues to budget discussions, and then Nova Scotia Power, and then the weather, and then on the national stage with Mark Carney, and then Donald Trump, and Greenland, and Minnesota, and things just keep going on and on and on. And sometimes some of the other important issues that are before us as a community kind of get pushed to the back, and that's why when we saw this article on the CBC's website, I thought it was important for us to bring this back onto the front burner. And we do know that there are several families that are living here in Halifax, and many more that are spread out across Canada that are here because of the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, and that doesn't get a lot of press these days, and that's still going on, and it goes on every single day. But the story that's emanating around here now is that there are a number of people and families that have come to Canada under the government's plan for refugees and are seeking permanent residency. But we're hearing, and it's being reported that it's going to take like up to 50 years before some of these applications get a chance to get even looked at. And that is going to be much longer than, and I shouldn't laugh because it's not funny, but it's going to be longer than most of these people that have applied for them are going to be on the planet. Very pleased to welcome into the show today to give us a little bit of perspective on this, an immigration lawyer with North Star Immigration Law Incorporated, and that's Elizabeth Wozniak. Elizabeth, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Dan.
So is that number correct? Is it like 50 years?
Yeah, for certain applications and certain programs, yes, that's the government's numbers.
Wow.
I know. It's
so
a bit crazy.
Is it because they're backlogged? Is it because they're complex? Have they given us a reason why it's going to take that long?
Well, I guess, so for just a bit of context,
Sure.
A number of Ukrainians, I think around 300,000, these are really rough numbers, around 300,000 were invited to come here just after the war started, and they came on work permits, right? So that's a kind of temporary residence. And then to move over from temporary residence over to permanent residence, you have to find a category that you fit under. And a lot of the Ukrainians will fit under certain categories that don't have a 50-year processing time, such as economic, provincial nominees, that type of thing.
Sure.
But certain individuals, like let's say people who are self-employed or working remotely for a company overseas, they won't fit in any of those traditional immigration categories. And that leaves only what's called the humanitarian and compassionate immigration processing stream for them. And that's the one that has the 50-year processing time. And so it's like an application for permanent residence on humanitarian grounds. Of course, 50 years doesn't sound very humanitarian, but that's the only thing that's left for certain of those individuals.
Elizabeth, if somebody is here on a work permit under this program, having Ukrainian refugees come here, are they in danger of those work permits not being able to be renewed and have to go home?
Well, yeah, that's always a risk. Like if you're here on temporary status, you're only here for let's say 2 or 3 years, the duration of that work permit. And definitely there's a risk. I think that, it doesn't make sense that Canada would let all these people fall out of status and force them to return to a war zone right now. But it's also really hard, I think, for families, people who have set up their lives here and got children here and that sort of thing, to make plans, and it puts them in a really precarious position. So I think practically, no, the government won't let that happen. But it's possible, and immigration priorities shift all the time. So who knows?
It has to be a little bit disconcerting for those families that are here, not knowing what side's up, really.
Absolutely. And, there are people who, it's hard. Like, people don't naturally want to leave their home countries. There's usually a good reason to do that. So to come here, set everything up, get your kids established, settled, integrated here, and then to not know what the future holds, from one year to the next, or even in some cases 1 month to the next, it's really tough.
I imagine. And you mentioned the 50 is kind of the outlier, but there's, I would imagine, different streams and different wait times for each of those categories you described earlier.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing about that humanitarian category is it's really unpredictable. Like the government, the current backlog is like 48,000 applications in the processing inventory is what they call it, and they're only meant to process something like 6,000 per year. So that's why it's ballooned into 50 years, because of course they're intaking more of those applications all the time,
right,
and that backlog is increasing. And then other streams, like the economic immigration streams or the family immigration streams, are a lot shorter, but they're still 2 or 3, sometimes 4 years to process.
And that's not just for Ukrainian refugees, that's for refugees and people coming to Canada across the board.
Yeah, like those are for temporary residents. Like the Ukrainians who are here on work permits, they're not like refugees in the traditional sense.
Right.
Like they haven't been determined to have refugee status in Canada or protected person status. They're really just here at the invitation of the Canadian government on these work permits. So there's really nothing giving them any extra status, like a protected status or whatever. So yeah, a lot of people are in that situation.
Have people, at least to your knowledge, in our area, gotten through the process and have gotten those residency statuses?
Oh yeah, like some people have. Like it's if you come here on a work permit and like as a Ukrainian or in any other category, because Canada has also evacuated people from Sudan and other countries where there's serious conflict happening and risks. And so you come here on a work permit and you get a job. A lot of the times, if it's a sort of a regular, quote unquote, normal job, if it's a normal employer, Nova Scotia, whatever, you can apply for permanent residence in a provincial nominee program. But the problem is that there's always, people who fall through the cracks who don't quite fit in that traditional, the criteria. So lots of people have got permanent resident status. I don't know the numbers, like of the 300,000, for example, Ukrainians that came, how many have actually, been able to achieve permanent resident status by now, but I would assume it's quite a number of them. But then there's always people who, don't fit perfectly into these categories, and they're the ones who we're concerned about, because it's not fair to just kind of let them, not know what's happening and not know what their future holds.
Elizabeth, thanks for sharing, and I appreciate you joining us today.
No problem at all. Thanks for having me.
Elizabeth Wozniak is an immigration lawyer with North Star Immigration Law Incorporated. Some applications can take up to 50 years to get reviewed. That's almost ridiculous, as many of the Ukrainian residents who came to Canada when the war broke out in Russia, which is just about, is it almost 4 years, if not already 4 years old? Wow. Are still working towards getting permanent residency and still on work permits, and could, not saying will, but could be sent home if that permanent residency isn't gained. Time to stop and take another break, and then we're going to head south of the border. We're going to connect up with our friend from the University of Maine. That's Mark Brewer. He's a political scientist. What's going on in Washington? What's going on in Minnesota? What's going on with Canada-U.S. relations? The President of the United States again dropping the prime ministerial title from our leader to governor. It's a mess. And we'll try work our way through it with Mark Brewer when we return. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand. Back in a minute. Very quickly, before we go to our next guest, in writing articles this morning on our website, citynews.halifax.ca, when we using the new Environment Canada color coding for the warnings, right? There's 3 colors now. There's yellow, there's orange, and there's red. And today's and this past weekend's snowfall warning was a yellow warning. And in writing it this morning, and in fact, I got one of our emailers sent me a note having some fun with it, and we had some fun with it this morning. If you read it very quickly, it says it's a yellow snow fall warning. So you know what they tell you about yellow snow, right? Anyway, just thought I'd share some snow humor with us. Mark Brewer's on the line from Maine. Are you snowed in this morning, Mark?
We are snowed in. It's still snowing.
Yeah, same here. It's and it doesn't look like it's going to give up anytime soon.
No. At least it's not yellow though here.
At least not yet, right?
Not yet. No.
Fair enough. Mark is in Maine, and Mainers are a tough sort, and they'll get through the snowstorms, no doubt. I just like Nova Scotians will. Mark, I was on vacation last week for the last couple of weeks, and I tried to disconnect from world events to try and recharge the batteries. But holy smokes, with all the stuff that was going on internationally, with the president, with the relations between our two countries, it was difficult to do that.
I'm sure it was. I mean, I don't know how far you'd have to go or where you'd have to go to actually be able to disconnect. But if you could manage it, that would be great.
So I guess let's start with the fallout from the World Economic Forum and Mark Carney's speech and President Trump's rebuttal. And now the President of the United States doesn't appear to be happy with Mark Carney's plans to negotiate a trade deal with China.
No, I mean, there's obviously a lot to unpack from last week, but I guess the biggest thing, tied to the events that you described is, kind of the reaction outside of President Trump to Carney's speech has been almost universally positive. I mean, he started with a standing ovation from the people in the room, and has only grown from there, I think. Trump obviously not happy with the speech, and as you kind of pointed out, the plans for what he is labeling a free trade deal with China, which Carney said is not a free trade deal. But I think the biggest thing coming out of Davos for me in terms of Trump was it looks like, the NATO allies in some way, shape, or form kind of got Trump to back down on Greenland, at least right now. And that is something we generally haven't seen much of. So I think that's the big story coming out of Davos, at least for me.
Do you think we're done with Greenland, or do you think there's this just been pushed back?
Oh, that's a good question. With Trump, you never really can tell when you're done with anything. It seems like, at least as of right now, the temperature has went down on that pretty dramatically. There are some people who are saying that the real thing that caused him to back down was the stock market's absolutely tanking, which, as we know from experience, is one thing that Trump does pay attention to. Whether it'll come back, who knows? Right now, Trump's got other things that are dominating his attention. So maybe Greenland is just temporarily off, or maybe it's more. You never want to say permanent with him. Maybe more long-term off, but at least as of right now, it seems to be off the radar screen.
Before we switch to some domestic issues in the United States, the Canada-U.S. relationship obviously is front and center now. The president taking to Truth Social on the weekend, calling our prime minister governor again. Is this, do you think, going to restart his rhetoric about 51st states and that sort of thing?
Well, it certainly could, right? Even though virtually everyone that I've, seen or read or heard, recognizes that Canada coming in as a 51st state is completely unrealistic. But I suspect that, one of the things we know about Trump is when somebody gets under his skin, this is how he responds. And certainly Carney seems to have gotten under his skin. So I would expect that we'll hear more of Trump's kind of bellicose rhetoric towards Canada.
And this, I'm not going to call it an opportune time, considering that we're getting ready to renegotiate the North American Free Trade Agreement.
No, I would agree with that. I mean, there's never a good time for anything like this, but this seems to be particularly ill-timed, right? So we'll see.
Hearing a lot of people suggesting that Donald Trump is going to tear up the best trade deal he ever negotiated.
It's again with Trump, you never really know. I mean, it's certainly a possibility. I would think that most people who are knowledgeable about this would advise him against that, including strongly suspect some of his own advisors, who he at least sometimes pays attention to. But again, once Trump gets in his head that he wants to do something, it can be very difficult to dissuade him from doing that, even if it appears to go against either his best interests or the country's best interests.
And domestically, of course, the tragic situation in Minnesota is grabbing international headlines again with a second shooting on this weekend. Is this situation hurting Donald Trump politically?
I think so, actually. Normally, these when Trump in the past has gotten, what he would say is tough on immigration and cracking down, it's drawn or generated pushback, but really only among those people who are already opposed to Trump. In the past, these kind of actions have really kind of stoked his base in many ways. This one appears to be a little bit different. What's going on in Minneapolis, St. Paul is, with all of the videos that are out there and all the stories and all of the coverage, is generating, a lot of anxiety among Americans, and not just among, people who are otherwise opposed to Trump. In particular, the most recent shooting is really causing concern not only among Trump opponents, but among at least some Republicans who previously have been very supportive of Trump. And I think this one, at least at this stage, and there's still a lot that can happen obviously here, but at least at this stage, this situation's starting to feel a little bit different. And the early polling that we're seeing come out on this is that this is hurting Trump in terms of public opinion, which is another thing he pays attention to. So we shall see.
Mark, there's been a lot of discussion even after the first shooting in Minneapolis that Donald Trump was going to deploy troops to that state in force. Do you think that's still going to happen now?
Well, he says it's still on the table, and the Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has said, that he will activate the Minnesota National Guard if that happens, and he may activate them otherwise. And so, if either or both of those things happen, obviously, I think we reach a real crisis there. Right. And a lot of Republicans, especially over the weekend, have been signaling to Trump that it might be time to turn the temperature down a little bit on this. In some cases, a lot. Some Republicans are saying that, he should pull all of, the ICE agents out of Minnesota and, send them elsewhere. And so this is a really tense situation here. And I think if Trump were to take that escalation step of sending, invoking the Insurrection Act and sending in regular federal troops, not just reserves from that he nationalizes, that would really, I think, provoke a really tense and not good crisis.
There's some suggesting that this will have an impact on the upcoming midterm elections.
Well, I think so. I mean, it's a long time until November, and then right. That's a lifetime in politics, sure. As you know. But this is unlikely something that is going to fade quickly, and probably won't fade by November either. I mean, these videos, out there, and it's not just the two of the shooting, but the videos of people being dragged from cars and agents, 5, 6, 7 at a time, descending on individuals and with guns drawn and batons and tasers and pictures of a 5-year-old boy being detained. I mean, these kind of things. Will get kind of seared into people's consciousness. And I think this is one that's going to last.
Mark, I appreciate your perspective and spending some time with us on a snowy Monday.
All right, that sounds good, Dan. Thank you.
That is Mark Brewer. He's a political scientist at the University of Maine, giving us a perspective south of the border. That's going to just about do it for this Monday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. Very glad that you're able to spend some time with us. My thanks to all of our guests who took time out of their days, even when they were snowed in, and join the conversation and imparted their knowledge upon us. I truly appreciate it. Thank you to all of you who picked up the phone and dialed the numbers for both Councillors on the Hot Seat today and for the open hour. I learn something new every day we do that segment, and we're looking forward to doing it tomorrow. Got a little bit of a heads up for you here. It looks like almost done that we're going to have a special edition on Thursday when we have an hour-long, Vanessa's getting mad at me, an hour-long sit-down conversation with Mayor Andy Fillmore. So make sure that you have us marked off on your calendar. Of course, as Mark said, a couple of days in politics can be a lifetime, but it looks like that's going to happen on Thursday, so I hope that you can join that conversation. My thanks, my enduring gratitude to Vanessa Vandenez on the other side of the glass for keeping things organized and keeping things rolling forward. Don't forget, tomorrow, Dr. Rob Thacker will be here. A conversation with the Minister of Health and Wellness, Michelle Thompson, will be joining us here on the program. And, of course, at 11 o'clock, we'll throw open those telephone lines for the second open hour of the week. Until then, everybody, watch your backs when you're shoveling your snow. Be careful out on those roads. They're still slippery. Some of them aren't plowed. And be well. And remember, be kind to one another.